Hey everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. I hope you're all doing good today. So sorry about the little late start. I was kind of tweaking some settings. So let me know if the sound is good from my voice sound, the microphone. I'm trying a lavalier mic instead of the big puck thing. So just let me know if this is good. I can kind of adjust, up and down if it's crackling or anything. If it's like kind of doing weird stuff, let me know because I can't hear it myself. So anyway, like I said, I hope everybody's doing good. So I got a new monitor. So I'm kind of playing with how that thing's set up, but I think we're good to go. So anyway, so last week we did the shredded money, and I got a couple of extra examples, things that I tried out. We did one with a nickel plated or like a silver tube. And we did one with like black painted tube. And overall, the silver one turned out probably better, just looks wise. I liked the black background, but there was glue splotches. So what I did was I went back and I actually kind of played around with another experiment casting. So I made a few more blanks, number one. And I tried to really load up a lot more of the shredded money, and I think you'll be interested to see the results. The other thing was I tried a batch with the other shredded money that I used to use. It's not like the long shreds, it's kind of like smaller chunks. So I thought that would be kind of an interesting thing just to kind of follow up from last week's shredded money thing. And I'll kind of go into that a little bit more. There's some interesting stuff with that, I think. We have a couple of quick announcements before we get started. So today what we're going to do is we're going to try to go for some like kind of marble look blanks. I've kind of played around with this in the past. I've done a few of these. So we'll try it out and see what's going on. So just like marble, like the stone. Usually you have kind of I don't know, a lot of times it's like a kind of whitish color, and then there's like little black or all kinds of different little kind of streaks. I was thinking in my head, we would go for that kind of white with kind of like grayish charcoal looking kind of streaks throughout it. And it should be pretty easy. It's not going to be anything super crazy, but I don't know of... I only know of off the top of my head one way to do this, and so we're going to make some vertical pour pen blanks that way. But I want to do one batch. I want to do that kind of normal like marble look. The other one, I want to actually put a little bit of gold. So kind of look at the different types of ways you can do kind of like a marbling kind of effect. And I don't know if they're going to turn out, amazing or not. I've never really done this before, so it should be kind of fun to try something out, see what the results are. Hopefully we'll be able to get one problem with this new monitor. It's kind of heavy and it bounces. So yeah, but anyway, it'll be kind of interesting to see if this will give us some pretty good results for pen blanks, or if we need to kind of go back to the drawing board and try something a little bit different. So, but before we get started, I have a couple of product announcements actually. So I'm going to switch over. Things are a little bit kind of different. I got to kind of figure out what I'm doing here. So we'll go to the casting view. Now, number one, I've brightened this and it looks pretty good, but hopefully we'll be able to get better, I don't know, a little bit more light on the situation. I also cleaned off my overhead lights, but I actually have like a light above the camera now. So it looks pretty good. I'm hoping it's not like super blown out, but it looks, on my screen, it looks pretty good. So... yeah, Mike likes the gold. The volume's a little low. Yeah. I increased the gain a little bit. Let me try. I think I can do it on the fly. I'm going to try and increase the gain to 8, like 1 more decibel. So let me know if I've kind of gone over or anything. I have it maxed out. There's like an upper limit filter, so it's not going to go above a certain point, but the lower point, it's hard to get things dialed in with this stuff when you change around stuff. And again, this is why I didn't change out the computer, because you got to basically start from scratch. All right, so number one, we were talking about this last week. We've got some, one more in there, some boxes of faux burls. So what I decided to do was go with 10 per box, and they're How much are they? I think they're $10. Hold on a minute. Before I say anything, let me go to my website and find, and I needed to do that anyway to get the link. Yeah, $10. So you get 10 of these little faux burls, and again, these are like the over pours. So, you know, like if I have excess resin, I just pour it into this little guy, and you get like, you know, a bunch of different resin, you know, colors kind of stacked up on each other. So pretty cool stuff. They're interesting. Now, the one thing that the big disclaimer, I don't pressurize this, and it's going to be Alumilite clear slow. Typically, you really want to pressurize that, but so there might be like a few little pinholes here and there just because it wasn't pressurized. But, you know, the top of the burl, that doesn't matter at all. For the top of it, that looks a little bit blown out. I might need to turn down the light a little bit. So that you don't have to worry about the top of the burl. It's the outsides that you might have, you know, a few little pinholes and stuff. Frankly, I haven't noticed any when I've turned these things. But so the game is you're going to need to recast these things. So you pop it into a 1.5 inch PVC pipe. Where's the camera? There we go. Pour clear. Part of the reason why I'm not recasting these and just selling the stoppers, number one, it's going to increase the price, but the other thing is that way you can do whatever you want. If you want to put some glitter in there, if you just want it clear, if you want to put color, you know, tint the resin, it lets you do whatever you want to do, but you got, you know, the bulk of the resin, the burl is ready for you. So anyway, 10 burls for $10, and they're going out in a small flat rate box. I only have 2 more boxes of these. 2 of them are already gone. A couple people reached out and kind of let me know that they wanted them, so I made sure that they got them ahead of time. I'm going to turn down this light just a little bit more. Seemed like it was a little bit kind of blown out, especially on the whites. So let's see here. Where'd the chat go? Oh, I'm going to get you a link to those things if anybody wants them. Like I said, there's 2 of them left. There's the chat. There you guys go. Oh, I think I did that wrong. What am I doing? There we go. There's a link to those. I'll have to get those. I'll have to remember after the stream is over to put a link in the description too. Let's see here. And the other announcement, I got a new pen blank that I'm calling Disco Ball. Check these things out. Wow. I mean, does that look like a disco ball to you? That's what it reminded me of. Yeah, it's a little bit kind of blown out. It seems like it's kind of washing out a little bit, but with the black or the darker background. So they're pretty cool. It's a little bit larger glitter, and it's like the little speckles, but it's kind of a mixture of a lot of stuff. But these things are pretty sweet. I was doing some experiments trying to figure out how much material I needed to put in the resin, and so I've got a couple of, I don't know which one's which now. This is probably the one. Got a couple, I just made a couple like quick bespoke caps. So look at that. I mean, blang. They're pretty cool. One of the cool things about this, I was thinking that this material would make a really cool accent. So like, let's say that you had just like, you know, I don't know, let's just say you made a black cap, you screwed up and had to make a black cap, but you could add a little bit of this material, kind of mix colors and just make little like accent colors with other blanks. I think that would be really cool on pens, and you could do this on the kitless or regular pens. You can just mix them together. You basically just glue it together. So I thought that'd be kind of cool. That's something that, I don't know, you don't see a lot of people doing, but, you know, if you want to make an interesting pen and not just, you know, have like this one blank or whatever, one thing that you can do, I'm getting a tube here. Just give me a tube. Okay, here we go. So one thing that you can do also is like segment. If you're doing like a tubed kit, pen, you can just glue on a bunch of different pieces, drill it out if you want. You could either glue the blank together, glue materials together ahead of time and then drill the whole thing. I don't know which way is better. I don't do a lot of this myself, but you also could just cut little chunks, drill it out, and then just, glue them all, like slide them on separately and glue the whole thing together also. Definitely I would go for an epoxy probably on that, but just to kind of be able to slob it all over the place. But anyway, the disco ball blanks are available on my website now. I'm pretty stoked about those. I think I'm gonna make some bespoke pens. I'm probably gonna do I don't know, I'll probably make like a full pen eventually, but I also want to play around with doing like the accent colors and stuff. You could like put one at the end and the top and then maybe in the middle or something like that. I think it'd be kind of fun. You could do all kinds of stuff. And that's another good use of a lot of like the glitter blanks. There's a lot of different things. I think eventually I'm probably going to come out with just some transparent colors of blanks. And I kind of feel bad because I know that Mark over at Hobble Creek and a couple other people are doing that, but it's really a cool way to go. Like you can do a lot if you just kind of have like the transparent stuff, especially if you're doing like an ink window on a bespoke pen. There's lots of different things you can do with that different kind of material. So eventually I might bring that out. I need to kind of play around. That's the one thing. One of my not so strong suits with resin casting is trying to get like transparent colors, because I haven't done a lot of work with it. But when you're talking about pen blanks, the tough thing is kind of threading the needle for, like, if you're doing if you think about it, on a bespoke pen, any pen really, you're gonna, you could pour a blank. And I just took the blanks away, but when the blank is like totally intact, like when I ship one to you, open the box up, you can look at like the transparency of a blank when it's full, like it's 3/4 inch, diameter. So there's like quite a lot of material there, but when you drill it out, a lot of times it can wash out the color a lot, especially if you drill out a lot of that the center, and you're turning it down quite a bit where there's like not much material left. So that's the tough thing. I never really got into that because I wanted to kind of play with it and test a bunch of stuff out. I forgot the bell bottom pants. I don't know. John Travolta, I know. You do not have to wear platform shoes unless you're too short for your lathe. So now let's go back to the overhead view and let's talk about some money blanks here. I'm going to zoom in. And I'm also going to play around with putting a longer thing on this camera so that I don't know. Anyway. So here's the one that we made. Let's back off a little bit. There we go. And I really like this. It all looks very smooth. Now there is a little bit of glue splotchage right there that you can see, but even with that, I mean, it just doesn't really stick out that much. This pen just all kind of goes together. This is a pretty nice example. So that's why I picked that. Now I'm pretty sure, yeah. So this is the other one that we made. And the problem is you can see glue splotching all over the place. However, where it's not glue splotched, let's try and get it to where there's no glares. There we go, right, the right angle. Too much of a glare. I really like that black. It really makes the money and the gold pop out, but like half this blank is glue splotch. So I didn't like that, and that's why I didn't make a pen out of that one. So what I decided to do was go back and, like I said, I tried another one. And what I did was I painted the inside of the blank itself on this one. I'm trying to get this thing to focus. Now you will not see glue splotches because the glue splotches are behind that paint, right? So I like that a lot better. Now here's the interesting thing. I actually added more shredded money per ounce of resin to this, and there's even more or like less looking shredded money in here, which is mind-boggling kind of. So I almost think if you're going to pour vertically, you're probably better off not trying to make it to the point where it's just blobbing money out, because I even tried packing these down. I was doing a couple different experiments. Like I actually had the mold. I was using the 7/8. I'm not going to pull that out because it's buried. But I actually had the mold here. Let's see here. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, and I'll show you what I was doing. I actually pulled, what did I use? I used straws. So I was thinking about it, and one of the issues that I had was I used a blank to kind of just try and push some of that money down in there. So I'd pour a little bit, and then I was trying to pack it down. And if there was any resin left over, it would be at the top. But and then I tried some straws and some different things, and frankly, it just would not pack the money down into this mold. It wasn't really working that great. So that didn't really work. I still think it's not a bad idea to maybe grab something, but I was thinking the straw will kind of grab the shreds, but it'll allow the resin, so it's not like it's like a suction effect so much. But it didn't really work that much. But yeah, so I loaded it up. I think that if you go back and look at how much money I put in per like ounce of resin, or grams of resin, I think that was probably a good amount to use. Frankly, I like I said, I tried really loading it up. I tried kind of adding just a little bit more, like kind of doubling it, and none of those things seemed to be any better in the final result of our blanks. So I don't know. The only way, if you want it to be super packed, like you're literally going to have to fill the entire mold, and I would just go with square. You're not going to get this vertically. You're going to have to literally fill the entire thing full of money, and then put, like I was saying before, you're going to have to compress it down using like an actual lid. And this is usually very messy because you have to put, X amount of resin in there, but you're literally going to have to grab clamps, put a lid on it, and like push this down in to like compact the money down in. And so the tough thing is you're pretty much going to have to go and find like a really deep mold, number one, and then you're going to have to compact that money. If you want it to be like super packed, it's going to be not very fun, basically. That's why I don't do it. It's very messy. It's kind of a pain. And it's tough. And frankly, even if you do all of that, you're still probably going to have some gaps in there. It's very difficult. And this gets into a case where vacuum might not be the worst way to go. Another thing to think about is if you're doing this type of thing is I would most likely recommend not going with Alumilite Clear Slow for something like this. Go for an epoxy that's got, a longer working time so that you can really, get everything in there, get all the money, like wet with resin, and then compact it and do all that stuff. But I think you're better off having more working time when you're dealing with things like that. And again, in this case, vacuum might work better to get, because if you're going to compact it and do all that stuff, pressure may not get all of the little air bubbles. Like the thing is, the pressure pot can collapse air bubbles that are literally round bubbles. It will collapse them and shrink them down. If you just have a gap where it's not like a bubble, but there's just a gap where there's like no resin and it's just air, this is where you start kind of getting into those issues, and the pressure pot can't fix gaps. If there's just no resin there, it's not gonna do anything. There's just nothing there, basically. So it gets a little bit difficult. Frankly, I personally think, for me at least, this is good enough. You can definitely see the shredded money. It's interesting enough, and it's not that difficult to get those kind of results. But I don't think you need to overpack it and try and like get crazy. I just don't know that it's like diminishing returns eventually. Now, one other thing that I wanted to show you guys is I went with so for anybody that didn't see before, there's a couple different kinds of shredded money. So we were using this, like the real, I want to try something. feel like it's kind of blown out. Yeah, that's a little bit better. So this is what we were using. This is like the longer shreds. The other one, and this is, and I don't know, you know, I bought this like many, many years ago, but this is the shredded money that I got from literally the Bureau of Engraving. Got like a 5-pound bag of it, and it's like larger chunks. So I decided to try that because I didn't remember having as much of an issue trying to get the shreds in the hole. And so this is what we got with that. Little bit different, right? Still looks cool. I didn't put any gold leaf in this one. But the cool thing about these other types of shreds is you can actually see some parts. Let's see if we can get, let me see if I can get this to focus on. See how there's like little bits where you can almost see like the prints. So it kind of does some different stuff with these different shreds, but I can't tell you where to go to get this type of shredded money. So it's just most of the time you're getting this stuff. And a lot of people like the longer shreds anyway. But just wanted to kind of share a couple of little thoughts about last week's thing. If anybody kind of plays around with this stuff and finds anything different, definitely let us know if you want to. A lot of people don't want to share their secrets, but so anyway, but overall I'm pretty happy with the outcome, and I do think that you can pour vertically. I think that you're better off going with PVC pipes or 7/8 holes. I think the 3/4 inch, like my Gatling molds and the P-Town subby vertical molds, they're like exact, I'm pretty sure they're all exactly 3/4 inch. I know mine are. I'm pretty sure the P-Town ones are. I think you're going to have a difficult time trying to get it into a 3/4 inch hole. It's going to be harder. And mentioning, you know, it's not a bad idea to go with a slower setting resin for any of these things, honestly. One thing that could do, going with like a slower setting epoxy, is it could give it more time for the shredded money to like settle more in the tube. And so you may get a little bit more compaction if it's not kind of like starting to set up a couple minutes after you put it in the pressure pot. Going with a thin, I would probably go with liquid diamonds if I was going to pick one. Go out and find one. Liquid diamonds is super thin, and I think that will also allow possibly, and I don't know exactly if this is going to work or not, but it's definitely not going to set up as fast. You got like about a 30-minute working time with liquid diamonds, but it's also extremely thin viscosity, so you may get a little bit more compaction going that route, even vertically, or whichever way you want to do it. If you want to use a brick mold, but definitely you need to account for if the money does kind of end up sinking and compacting more, you may have just a lot of clear at the top. So just, whether it's horizontal or vertical, just keep that in mind. So let's see here. Are certain glitters better than others? No. I really can't think of any glitter that, well, so glow-in-the-dark glitter could be more abrasive, possibly. But I haven't seen any that are, well, okay, so one thing to think about, the more glitter or stuff that you pack into a blank, the more possibility that you could get little chips and stuff like that, or the things may just kind of rip out if they don't really stick to the resin. Most of these things are like plastic, and so like larger chunks of glitter. So for instance, I make some, I don't think I have any in here. I make some with like the larger, like the autism puzzle piece blanks, or like I can show you the glitters. Let's go overhead here. So like these larger chunks of glitter. I don't know if any will come on my finger here. Oh, get on the camera. That kind of stuff, it doesn't stick extremely well to the resin, and it's a big chunk, right? And so you could get little kind of chips and things like that, but it's not like brittle. But it's just because it's not sticking to the resin so much. So things like that, if you like super loaded a blank up, and for the blanks that I sell, people complain a lot that there's not that much in there by the time you're done drilling it out and doing all that stuff. And I'm like, if I load up more, you're not gonna have a blank in the end. It's gonna blow up. So you gotta kind of thread the needle again with how much glitter. If it's really chunky and like this stuff is very smooth surfaced, so the resin doesn't stick to it and you can get little chip outs and things like that. So that's the only thing I could think of. But other than that, I mean, any glitter is gonna work fine. So let's see. Brian was asking which stream software. I'm using Prism Live. It's pretty awesome. Totally free. It's basically exactly like OBS. It's based on OBS. That's what the baseline software is, which is open source. And then the cool thing about Prism is you can, without having to pay anybody, you can multi-stream if you want to do, which I'm going to try this down the road. And we kind of talked about this. I don't really care personally if I stream to YouTube and Facebook and all these other places. It's not like it's going to make any difference to me personally. It's just more like there may be some people that just don't want to go to YouTube and mess with that or don't use it for some reason, and they are on Facebook, so it may be a little bit more accessible to some people. That's the only thing that I'm thinking of. But if you want to stream to multiple platforms at once, it's built into the software, which, I mean, honestly, I think OBS, Streamlabs OBS, which is also free software, but then you have to pay to do multi-stream. And there's other, pay for multi-stream kind of things, or just other softwares where you have to just basically pay them to do that. Now, if you're doing something where you're going to have multiple, you're always going to have guests on, I think StreamYard's probably the smarter way to do that. But if you're just mainly doing like what I do, and maybe you might have guests on sometime. I think you can do guests, but if you want to stream to multiple platforms, this one's pretty good so far. And there's lots of extra little goodies that make things easier where you don't have to add plugins and all this other junk. So, should be pretty cool. Yeah, it seems like there's a big lag. I have never used eye candy flakes, so nope. I think you just dump it in the resin and move on. Okay, so let's get to casting. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let's get to some casting here. So we're gonna do some marble effects, and I'm just gonna, we're gonna do one example, or one experiment, I should say. That's more like, I've got a blank that I did a long time ago. At this point, it's like yellowed. Oh, that's not even a good example. But like the picture, the thumbnail. Basically, what I'm going to go for is we're going to add a little bit of like a white pearl mica powder. And then what I'm going to do is we're just going to mix up a very small cup, and we're going to just drizzle very small amounts. Like this thing's going to be mostly like white resin, and we're just going to try to drizzle little bits of like a kind of a charcoal type thing. And what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to mix a little bit of black mica powder. So you could do this a few different ways. We could just add a little bit of dye. That would probably work, but I think for this case, I think what I'm going to do is we're going to mix up a little bit of silver and a little bit of black. Yeah. And I'm going to look at the difference between a couple blacks here. So, and I'm not going for the like super silver, like the what is that one, Jungian. So we're not going for this. This stuff is very silver. Okay, so I don't need that really. That might work, but we're gonna go for like a silver gray. I think this one's a little bit better for what I'm trying to do. It's not as like bright silver. And then I've got some Ninja here, which is a really black mica powder. Yeah, I think we're gonna go with this one though. I don't really need it to be super, super black, I don't think. I don't know. I'm not sure here. This one's a little bit more in the gray area where the charcoal black. And there's lots of different mica powders. These are just the ones that I have. Actually, let's go with Ninja. We're going to add silver, so that should give us kind of some sparkle. So we'll go with Ninja Black, and then we'll go with and we'll go with the what is this one called? Silver Gray from P-Town. And I'm just going to go with Snow White. For the white. So it's going to be kind of mostly white, and then we're going to mix both of these into one cup, the black and the silver. What I'm trying to go for is kind of I don't know, in the middle between silver and gray, or silver and black. And then, like I said, the key, what we're going to try to see if this works. In my mind, you know, when you're looking at like a marble slab, most of the time it's mostly like white, and you just have these little veins here and there. Maybe you might have a kind of a larger one, but we're going to try to just pour very small amounts of that kind of black gray color in with some white. Now, there's a lot of different ways you could try to do this. The big question I have that I don't know, I think I'm not going to stir it up. I think that I could go both ways. Realistically, you know, I would need to do some extensive testing to see what the difference is between just trying to pour like a thin amount in, not stirring it up, or doing the same thing and then, you know, using one of the like stir things. Using a stir stick, I can see that it may spread it out a little bit more. Yeah. But it also could thin it out. So that's the tough thing. In my head, I'm going to go for pretty thin amounts. And what I'm kind of hoping is that just dumping the white on top with it will spread it out enough. We're not going for like swirly patterns or anything like that, you know. So I think that let's just give it a shot. We'll see what the results are. And if I need to kind of, you know, try something different. If it doesn't give us the results that we want next week, then we'll try something different. Now, we're going to do this one with, like I said, the kind of grayish color. But then we're also going to do one with gold, where we're going to mix like a white and a gold. I think that that's a really nice color combination. So I've seen a couple other like commercial pen, you know, like the bigger pen companies have that type of a combination in some of their pens. So I got a little bit of inspiration from them. They're like the larger, they're not like makers. They're kind of factory pen making kind of things. So it'll be a little different because I think they use different materials usually, but all right, so. Eric, you can set it to whatever you want. You don't have to use just the built-in things on there. There's a way to just input they call it I don't even know what this stands for, but the RMTP. So it doesn't have to be one of the things that they have natively built in. It's got a thing where you can stream it to wherever you want to go. So this thing totally works for Zoom if you wanted to use it for like all of them are able to do that. Like any streaming software will allow you to enter some, you know, whatever the address thing is, which you should be able to get that from Zoom, whatever it is. Because like frankly, I don't even need to use their YouTube setup. I can just go grab the YouTube RMTP and enter it manually if I wanted to. But they, you know, obviously it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do that since they already got it set up for you. So you can use that with OBS or any of the things. You should. That may, you know, maybe there are some that doesn't work, but all the big ones you can just enter wherever you're trying to stream to manually. So I'm just going and finding myself a new cup. I got that there. I think I'm gonna yeah, what's going on here? I need the camera to be like further out over here. I don't know what, because I have a longer pole thing. So I'm gonna, next week, hopefully this thing will be a little bit better set up. I'm not really super thrilled with that. And that didn't change. That nothing changed with the camera or anything. It's just, I'm looking at this and it's hard for me to, it needs to be a little bit more straight down, you know, kind of thing. All right, so let's get our little book out. Sorry guys, there's a lot going on here. So today is 9/21. We're doing marble effects. And this type of thing, assuming that this works out the way that I want, it's like the look that I want in the end. You know, this would work for like river table type stuff, or if you're just doing like charcuterie boards, or, you know, it should work the same no matter what. And same thing with, you know, if you're doing it like a brick pour, horizontal pours, you should be able to just kind of drizzle a little bit, you know, and maybe mix it around a little bit. But hopefully if we get the right effect, I mean, you can kind of utilize similar, you know, materials and get the same effects. So number one, we're doing, so I'm going to mix up 400 grams. These Gatling molds, technically 380 is plenty. I go with 400 and then I use it to fill the little faux burl mold guys to get those extra pieces. So we're going 400 grams. And another thing you could do if you wanted a little bit more variation is you could maybe go for like different colors of white. A couple, you know, like a couple different cups, like, and I would probably even just do like a dirty pour, like, you know, mix up two different colors, like shades of white, and then just dump them together before you pour them. And that'll give you a little bit more variation, which, you know what guys, let's do that. Different shades of white is not the most easy thing on the planet to do. To be honest, I'm not sure. Like we could go for kind of like a little bit of a grayish color, or, you know, very, not gray, but like more grayish. I don't know. You could also go for like yellower. But you have to be extremely careful about what you do. Now we could also even add like an interference powder or something like that to the white. And that would give you a little bit of a kind of a halo looking kind of glow effect. Let's do this. Let's do that some other time, because I've never even done it before, and I don't want to ruin the whole batch just because I was trying to mess around with that. So let's just go with our Snow White for the white part. So, I mean, the majority of the resin is going to be white. We're going to mix up, yeah, I think we're going to go with like 350 grams is going to be this white, and then 50 grams is going to be this mixture of Ninja and Silver Gray. And you don't need much of this mica powder for this kind of black grayish thing. Let's go with 50 grams, yeah. I'm just gonna go with what I call a small scoop. I mean, I could pull out a 1/16 teaspoon thing, but I'm just gonna get a little bit on it and just kind of wing it. It's not that big of a deal. This doesn't need to be, it can be easily repeatable, I think, without having to have very specific amounts. But I do want to see, let's see here, 300. We're going to end up going with, I need to look at a couple numbers here. So, oops. I'm going to add just a little bit, I think, of white dye to this as well. Probably just like, I'm just going to add like 0.5 grams maybe. And then I'm going to go with, let's see here, probably maybe like 2 teaspoons. Let's see what that looks like. I didn't do a whole lot of pre-planning on this, obviously. We're winging it here, guys. So let's see here. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, so let's get this rolling here. Oh shoot, I should have filled my, I think I'm gonna have to fill the resin a little bit before we do the next one. Okay, so I'm gonna need 50 grams. Let's see. Like I said, the grayish stuff, we're going for very thin. We're not going to need a lot to add to these things, so 50 might even be too much, honestly. But we'll have to kind of see how this goes on this first round. So we got 200 grams of Part A, and we're using Alumilite Clear Slow. Close enough. And we'll get our Part B out. 200 grams of that. Oh, went over a little bit. That's okay. You got a little bit of wiggle room with Alumilite Clear Slow with the Part B anyway. And some of you guys know that I usually add a little bit of extra Part B if I'm doing something that's dead clear. It just makes sure that you don't get a kind of a white hazy effect. It helps to ensure that. It's not a guarantee all the time, but so you got a little bit of wiggle room on that. I still, you want to be as close as possible though. You're better off going, 200 grams of Part A and 200 grams of Part B. As close as you can get it. In this case, I would have had to add more Part A to get that even. So, knowing that I've got wiggle room, we're just going to leave it. And when you're mixing up your resin, you always want to make sure you keep the stick head on the bottom of the cup. You're not just kind of wiggling it around on the top. That way you're scraping the bottom of the cup and you don't have any Part A or Part B. Whatever you poured in there first would probably stick to it. So you're getting that all scraped up, and then you want to make sure that you're scraping the sides of the cup as well to get everything, all the Part A's and Part B's mixed up. Okay, that ought to be good enough. Let's get 50 grams of resin in this little cup here. Oh, went over. Okay, I can pour a little bit back. We've got plenty. Oh, then I went a little under. There we go. Okay, so like I said, I'm just gonna kind of wing it here with how much we're not gonna need that much mica powder, so that's like plenty. And we're going to double this basically because we're putting silver and gray, and black in here. And if it's a little bit too not enough, kind of thing, we can always add a little bit more. So just a little scoop. Okay. Let's see how I did. And you can see what color we're looking at here. Kind of going for like a gray. And there, you know, there's probably going to be some tones of like kind of black here and there and some silver here and there because we mix those two together. But overall, I'm kind of going for like a kind of a silver gray. That's not bad. I think I'm actually going to add, when I pull the stick out, it is pretty transparent. So I'm going to add a little bit more black to this. And that ought to do the job quite nicely. You could even add some dye if you really wanted to. That's looking a little bit better. I don't think we really need to worry about transparency because the white is going to be opaque. So I think if we just get this pretty close, hopefully that ought to do the trick. But this, you know, this first round, I'm just kind of winging it here, and I have an idea of how things are going to work, but that may not be, I may be totally wrong, right? So we got to do one batch, see what happens, and then I can kind of go back and tweak things if I have to. Okay, we'll set that aside, and then we're going to bring this back. We're going to add 0.5 grams of, and I'm going to be using, I've kind of switched to this, I like the Divine White. It doesn't require as much to get it like opaque. Like it's more concentrated than Alumilite's white dye. So I've been kind of using it a little bit more. See where we're at here. Yep, nailed it. Okay, so I'm just going to mix that in, and that should make it quite white. I mean, that's making, that was probably almost too much. Then we'll add our mica powder. So this is not going to be, you know, transparent. It's going to be pretty opaque. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a teaspoon of Snow White, and I want to see what that looks like. Because if we don't need to put 2 teaspoons in, there's no sense in wasting another teaspoon of this stuff, you know? I think that's probably good, actually. I'm actually gonna, I want to look on a stick. That's the only drawback to using these HDPE. I couldn't think of what it was called. Sticks is you can't. There's nothing to see through the resin sometimes. You know, like, so what I want to do. This is what I'm doing is pulling out a little bit of resin, and there's just a thin layer of it on the stick here, right? If I can see wood grain, then this is definitely going to be too transparent. Like you're going to see the tube, like absolutely for sure. So if you can't see it, which I can't, then this is definitely opaque enough. I've added enough mica powder to where I would still recommend going with a white painted tube on this, just because you may see a little bit of a gold kind of background. You know, it still could be a little bit translucent, and that gold tint could affect the color of your blank, and that's not something that you want to find. You're not going to find that out until you're done turning the pen. So, you know, you're better off just using a painted tube off the bat. And if you didn't need to, you know, oh well, you wasted a little bit of paint or, you know, one of your powder coated tubes. But if, on the other hand, you don't do it and it, you know, you can see brass, you know, that blank is, all that work is over with. Like you got to start over basically, or deal with a halfway not so awesome looking pen. Now another thing that you could maybe do is maybe go for like a dirty pour type of a deal, but it just doesn't, it ends up clumping together typically. I never really loved the results that I got doing a dirty pour. You just can't add a tiny amount of you know, this kind of darker color and have it like equally, you know, mixed throughout your white, like this bigger cup. It's kind of not going to work that way. It never did for me. So maybe there's some, you know, super secret technique to doing a dirty pour where it's going to actually work out right, but I've never seen that myself. So I think you're better off just kind of dumping the resin in and then pouring like a thin stream and then, you know, going back and forth like that. At least for me, that's the only way to get what I'm trying to go for. So it's 72 degrees in my shop right now. And I think we can pour it at around 95, which this is already at 96. Let me see what the gray is at. It's probably going to be a lower temperature, which means it's a little thinner. Oh, it's actually kind of up there. I think we're ready to pour. I don't need to go for super, I don't mind so much if it kind of disperses a little bit. That's kind of what marble looks like, I think. Let's just go for it. So can you guys see what's going on here? Everything working? Okay. So again, I'm going to go for like a kind of a thin, small amount here. Just a very thin amount. Looking down in there, if everything stays the way it looks right now, that's exactly what I wanted. I doubt that's going to happen. So it is looking a little thin. That's the only thing. That still might work. It's tough. We're going to go for no stir. Oh, I kind of missed the hole there. Probably made too much of this gray. But what I'm trying to do, we got a lot more of this white, so I'm pouring a lot more white than I am the gray color per like pass or whatever, per round. And this is going to be kind of, you know, this isn't going to be a lot of gray mixed. I kind of went a little crazy on that one. It's not going to be a lot of gray, swirly kind of thing is what I'm hoping for. I'm trying to, we want just very thin, you know, sweeps here and there of the gray color. So we'll just put a little bit more in there and then that ought to wrap it up. Now, like I said, we could go for stirring it up. That may make things a little bit more, like kind of thin out the gray color. That's looking reasonable on the top, and that's not going to be indicative of what's in the blanks, but that's the kind of amount that I want. I just want a little bit of gray mixed with the white, and everything's good. Now, we've got quite a bit of this gray left over. I think I could probably drop that down to like 30 grams. Let's see how much we actually have in there. Kind of curious how much is left over of the gray. Just kind of get this stick out of there. Yeah, so there's 30 left. So we only used 20 grams. I think we could easily just use 30 as the amount. No problem. So let's see here. We'll get this guy. I'm going to put this one in this pressure pot. I'm going to remember to see if this works. Yeah, you can kind of see it. So we'll drop this guy in this pressure pot here. Get that out of my face. And we're going up to, I think it's 50, maybe 60 PSI. Yeah, 60 psi on this one. I got my regulator set. It's been a while since I thought about it. But I wanted to kind of mention, if you're kind of new to this stuff, with the pressure pots, just make sure that you're not going over whatever the max PSI rating for your pot is. This one, and these are the California Air Tools ones, which is what I recommend you get anyway. They're ready to go out of the box. They work excellent. They seal great, you know, just a good overall pot. But it literally tells you, you know, max operating pressure 60 psi, and it says max tank pressure 80. So I would just get rid of the max tank pressure part of this, and max operating pressure, this is what you're going to be running it at. The operating pressure 60 psi. Don't go over that. You're good to go. Everything's nice and safe. And I got a link to these pots at Turner's Warehouse down in the description. So let's go back to this view. We're going to dump the rest of this guy. Looks like we got a little bit of the white left too. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to dump it together. Give it maybe like a little stir. It's getting a little sticky there. Give it just a little stir. And I can't see what I'm doing here, so there we go. So I don't know if you can see. So in this cup, this looks like kind of like, I mean, this is like the reverse of the marble effect that I'm going for. And that seems like, oh, that's a great idea. But the problem is when you pour it in, it doesn't, that's what you get. It just, that's why the dirty pour technique I've never liked, because it just ends up dumping it all kind of together, you know? So that's kind of the tough part about the dirty pour technique. It might work a little better if you're doing like a tabletop type thing, or like, you know, charcuterie board where you're pouring a thin layer. But when you're dumping it into a tube, it all just kind of creates like, I don't know, like I can't even explain, very thin partitions of those two colors. So that's all I'm going to dump in there. We're just going to do a little accent. It looks cool, but if you're going for marble, that's not marble. You know, that's definitely not marble. Okay, so I'm gonna wipe off that stir stick. Now we're gonna do another batch, and rather than me doing like another type of, you know, the same type of thing, I want to just get the results, because that might have nailed it completely, and I don't want to mess around wasting time doing other variations of that before we need to, kind of thing, right? Now, the likelihood of it turning out exactly how I pictured in my brain is pretty low. I'm going to be completely honest. That is the hardest thing, you know, that's the most frustrating part of resin casting, I think, is you got something in your head and you go and do a pour, you think it's going to work, and it just doesn't. So the thing is, even if you do, you know, it's not really a mistake necessarily, but like failure, I guess, or, you know, you just didn't hit the mark kind of thing. Those types of things are extremely valuable, and they shouldn't get you down. A lot of times what can happen is you may get a really good idea, like you know, you wanted one thing but it did something different. Well, okay, so you got that result, and it may be some result that you had never even thought about doing, right? So you did an experiment, didn't get what you wanted, but you might have gotten something else that's useful down the road. So always keep a notebook, keep an open mind. You know, don't get discouraged if you don't get the results you want. It's maybe just one or two more pours, and you'll be there. So on this second one, we want to go for gold, and I'm thinking, I think we got to just go with 14 karat nugget. That's it. I'm debating in my brain, and let me know you guys' thoughts. God, it seems like there's a big lag between what's happening live and right this second. I got to look into that a little bit. But let me know in the comments if you guys, what you guys' thoughts are. So I'm going to go for the same white, and then I want to have some gold in there too. The two things that were in my head were we could either just go for, and this is what I'm leaning towards, just dumping some 14 karat nugget, pretty much the same exact way that we did this one. Hopefully we'll get some like veins of, you know, like gold, these little gold nugget kind of things here and there in the resin. That's what I'm hoping for. The other way to go is we could add a little bit of gold, like Olympic gold, or, you know, whichever. That's probably the one, because I don't have any other golds. We could go for like an Olympic gold mica powder mixed with the 14 karat nugget. I don't know what I think about that. I kind of prefer the 14 karat nugget. The only issue is that stuff is kind of like larger chunks. So you don't really get like, you either have to put a ton of that stuff in, and then we're just trying to pour little thin wisps of it and hope it stays together. Or you have to add something else like the mica, where it's like a finer thing where you're getting more gold, but you have some speckles. I gotta be honest, I don't know which way to go. Leaning towards just 14 karat nugget, but see what you guys have to say about it. Okay, so let's, you know what? This thing's kind of mangled. We're gonna go with a new one. Nice and clean. Okay, so let's go with the overhead. Hopefully the stream is still working. It says there's an excellent connection, but I don't see any chats going on. I always get a little bit worried, especially when we like change stuff and all that goodness. Okay, so number 2, we're doing gold, I don't know, vein, marble. Another thing that we could do is, you know, well, I want to do just gold on this one, but down the road, some other time, you know, you could do both of these things. Have a little bit of gold, have a little bit of that kind of charcoal, and you could get all kinds of different stuff. Okay, it looks like the chat's still working. All right, good. All right, so let's see here. We're going to do 400 grams again. I don't really think so. The only change I'm going to make is we're going to go 360 grams and then 40. I think 40 is plenty. Probably should only just do 30, but 40 grams of the 14 karat nugget. We got one other. Yeah, I think we're just going to go with the nugget. I think that's going to be a pretty cool one. So we'll do another 5 grams. That was definitely plenty of white. I'm going to see what happens with 0.4 grams. Like I said, if I was doing this with the Alumilite white dye, I mean that 0.5, it would be kind of like translucent. So the Divine Pigments, I think if you're looking for a white dye, this is probably the one to go for because you can use way less. Like I would need to probably use twice as much of this white dye to get the same opacity effects, whatever. And frankly, Divine White is whiter. It's more like a pure white than Alumilite's white. And I don't know if that, I mean, they're very white, but maybe it's just the fact that there's not as much dye in this. Now, on the other hand, the Divine Black, whatever color, I think they call it carbon black or charcoal black or something like that. The Alumilite black dye, way more concentrated than the Divine. So if you're going for a black dye, I would go with this, which is, it's Alumilite. I just buy the giant, these gigantic ones, and then fill up my own 1 ounce bottles. But the Alumilite black dye is the one that I would go for if you're going for black. Okay, so 0.4 grams of snow, or the Divine White, plus, and we shouldn't have to do anything different. One teaspoon. So I need to edit my. We only went with 1 teaspoon of the Snow White. Ninja, and so let's see here, I messed that up. Ninja, and we did, what's it called? Silver Gray. Now, one thing that may happen that I would say I'm a little bit worried about on that first round that we did, because I was pouring a very small amount in there, and this is one of those tough things with resin casting, like kind of threading the needle with how much of stuff you need to do. What could happen is, because we kind of washed out, there's like way more white, we dumped white on top of that, and it was kind of sloshing it around, the kind of charcoal color. It may really wash out because it wasn't as like dark. Like we put no dye in there and it was a little bit kind of translucent. So we'll have to see what the results are again. But with that kind of darker color, I may have to come back and put a little bit of dye in there to kind of darken it up, or just add more mica powders to the mixture to kind of darken it, keep it from like kind of washing out a little bit. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how it turns out, kind of thing, what the results are that we get. So we're doing 1 teaspoon Snow White, and then 14 karat nugget in 40 grams. We're gonna do, I want to load it up. So I'm gonna start with like let's try a ½ teaspoon. I'm gonna see how I feel about that. I might end up going like a teaspoon and like really loading it up. And again, this is another one of those things where we're not pouring a lot of that gold in there necessarily. So it may wash out if I don't have enough of the actual, mica powder stuff in there. The other thing is we may need to pour more, going with those super thin amounts of, per pour or whatever, that may not work out so well. It may just wash out. So there's a lot of stuff to kind of like, we'll gain a lot of knowledge once we turn some of these back. It'll be kind of an interesting thing. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it, and you'll kind of see, what can happen. And this works, for any mixture of mica powders and stuff, but if you can kind of see what the results are, it'll kind of give you an idea of how to get a similar result, or maybe don't do that, do something slightly different, and you can kind of work on your own designs and effects without having to waste any resin. Ooh, we just barely had enough without having to refill. Got me some more. We have a little bit more in the 10-gallon jugs, but I've got a brand new Alumilite clear on the way. Resin day is always fun. And I think one of the nice things also about vertical pours, if I wanted to make 8.5 inch or even 12 inch long, tall, blanks, all you got to do is switch out the mold. There's no technique difference between pouring a 5-inch blank and a 12-inch blank. That's one of the things that I really like about this. There are differences. If I change, like if I'm pouring a brick like this versus even like something like this horizontally, those are two different pours. That's totally different. You're going to get totally different results doing that. And even if I was going to go for like a half size, like a 3-inch by 5-inch, even that would be a little bit different. Like there's some slight differences in there. So it's kind of interesting. Now, if you're changing the diameter of the tube, 3/4 versus 1.5 inch, like if you're making a stopper blank, that's totally different. Totally different. And I'm honestly not even that great at pouring 1.5 inch, like larger blanks like that. Because what ends up happening is the resin moves around a lot more than in like a 3/4 inch tube. And so you have to wait quite a bit longer for the temperature number. A lot of people are always like, what temperature do I need to pour at? Well, if you're pouring it into like a 6-inch tall by 1.5 inch PVC pipe, you're going to need to wait a lot longer. Probably, and I don't know for sure. It depends on your conditions in your shop and all kinds of stuff. But typically, I'm going like I'm adding like I mean, minimum 5 degrees, but it's usually more like 10, maybe even 15 degree difference if I'm pouring a 3/4 inch tube versus 1.5, because you got to get it a little bit thicker. And even with that, you're still getting, it still tends to just kind of explode it. You're almost better off pouring down something like a stick or something like that. But the problem with that is you have to pull the stick out at the end. So there's no easy way to do it. Okay, so that ought to be probably good enough. Let me go get a mold. That might help. Go get us a mold. Drop that right there. Okay, so we got our little cup here. In fact, let's see, 40 grams. In fact, I can go for a smaller cup even. Let's see how that works. Usually I just go 30 grams in this, but I think we can get 50 in there. No problems. Let's try, let's see, what are we doing, 40? 40 grams. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, went a little over, that's okay. No biggie, no biggie. Okay, so we got 14 carat nugget. This stuff gets everywhere. Oh man, I gotta get some more of that. Folks. I think I might have another one of these somewhere in a hidden drawer. Okay, so I'm gonna look and see how I feel about this first. I'm just gonna chuck that thing. And then we might add I really didn't need to use a scale or anything. I was not weighing that, just to let you guys know. I just weighed, oh, that's pretty good. I think that's good. I can handle that. You want this stuff to be pretty loaded up. If there's like big gaps when you pull it out on a stick, then you probably need to add more. But I think that's plenty. Half teaspoon for that 40 grams. Worked good. Get our white ready, and then again I'm going to pour this. Let's see, what did I pour that at? Still 72 in the shop, reasonably pretty nice actually, I got to be honest. But you know, temperate climates here, when it starts getting, you know, closer to 70 degrees in my shop, that's where most of these pen blanks, 95 maybe 100 is all that I need. Maybe for like if I was doing just dyes, I would lean more towards like the 100 degree mark. But for most mica powders, especially if you really are loading up a bunch of mica powder in there, 95 is really all that I need to go to. So I only added 0.4 grams of the Divine White dye, and I think that's plenty. Stuff always kind of, like I said, it's so concentrated that you just don't need that much to get, depending on what you're doing. Now, if I was going for like a white blank, I would need to add more, but all I'm doing is trying to break up, you know, add that white background and make it more opaque. You know, dyes can help make things more opaque, especially white dye. And so if you're going for a white blank, I usually add a little bit of white dye just so I don't have to add as much mica powder, honestly. So how much? 1 teaspoon. I think, again, I think that's going to be plenty. Just the 1 teaspoon. But you can always use this. The stick method is pretty good. Again, it's not a guarantee that there's not going to be any tube showing or even like a little bit of that kind of brass color showing through. That's not what we're going for. We're going for pretty close. And then I still recommend, in most cases, to pull a tube out and paint it, you know, just to make sure that there's no brass. Which the thing is, like, it'd be if the tubes were all just nickel plated instead of brass, like, brass just really shows up behind other colors. Like if it was just like a nickel plated, like chrome, if that's what all of them were, it was just chrome, you wouldn't even need to paint them, you know? It's kind of silly. I'm going to do my stick test one more time here. See. Because I did change things around, and there's more resin in this cup also, so that also changed the amounts. But it's still pretty darn opaque. It is less opaque, I will say that, than it was before. It seemed a little bit more opaque on the last round, but this is plenty. I'm not worried about it. Okay, so we're gonna wait till, I don't know, like 95, 97. We're around 91 right now, 92. Let's see what this one's at. 90.5. Oh, I might not have another 14 karat nugget. Oh man, guys. Somebody's going to be calling Turner's Warehouse after this. Oh, it's okay. I've got a brand new one. Woo! That was close. I also got penny copper down in there. I want to try that one out. So these are at very different temperature numbers. You know, like the larger amount of resin, that's going to heat up faster. So we're at like 92, 93 in this one, but this one's already at 95, probably at 97 or so. So just know that larger amounts, of resin is going to heat up quicker. I'm going to do a little bit more. Okay. Can you guys see what I'm doing? I'm doing these a little bit different on this round. I'm doing a little bit more of the gold than I did with that gray, I think. And that's actually the really tough thing about pouring blanks, is like trying to pour some specific amount per pass. Like that makes things tough. And repeat that like over and over. You can there's like different little kind of like counting techniques and whatever. But that's one of the tough things I find. Trying to kind of get the amounts, especially when you're talking about like very different amounts of resin, you know, like this, you know, 30 grams versus 360 or whatever, 40 grams. And I'm not stirring this one either. We're just going to let it fly. So hopefully this will, look good. I don't know. There's a couple different things. Like I said, density, amounts, how much you're pouring per pass, all these kind of things. But I think one of the big ones also is going to be, do you stir it or do you not? So if I get good enough results, that's why I'm not going to do any more experiments on this kind of round or whatever. If it turns out how I want, then I'm not doing anything, right? So we'll have to wait for the results, but those are looking pretty cool. I really like that color combo. What do you guys think of that? That white and the pearl, kind of pearl and gold. That to me, that would be like a really, I don't know, elegant. To me, that really exudes elegance. Pearl and gold. Make some really cool looking pens, I think, with that. And I don't think, I have more faith in that one, regardless of the technique. I think that one's going to be a much easier one to get a pretty elegant looking blank regardless. The first one, if it's extremely washed out, if I didn't put enough, like if it's not dark enough color or there's just not enough of the charcoal color, those may be just kind of dud blanks, right? These ones, I think they're going to be good. I got a good feeling about those, no matter what. So let's see here. We're going to we'll do our extra pour here. This time I'm not going to do it the way that I did before. It's hard for me to see. There we go. There we go. See in there. Try and get the right angle here. So we're going to pour a little bit of this. I'm going to go back and forth because I'd rather, that looks better to me. And I'm hungry. It's lunchtime. So again, we got some burl boxes for anybody that didn't see at the beginning. And I'll show you guys. So I use the excess resin to make these little faux burls. I'm going to give it a little stir here. Look at that. So the stir stick might be a good way to go with these two. We'll just have to wait and see. Just have to wait. And then I'll top off that little faux burl with something else. That one's going to be a pretty good one. All right, so I'm going to set this aside. Kind of looks like butterscotch and marshmallow. Does anybody know the Scotch Kisses from See's Candies? That's what that looks like to me. I used to love those things when I was a kid. I would eat like boxes of them. I don't know why I was fat. Okay, so I'm just wiping off my sticks here. Get them ready for the next round. All right, guys, there you have it. Pretty good. I'm really, really anxious to see how these things turned out. I think marble, the theme for this week is obviously like kind of elegant looking pens. I think marble is like kind of a really elegant look, and that gold and pearl, another really elegant look. And, if we can get these things to work, we might add some of these to the website. So I was talking about the faux burls. So I got a couple boxes of these faux burls. Oh, that's the wrong. That's not what what am I doing here? We're doing this one. So these are, again, just over pours. And so what I've done is set up a box of 10 of these for $10. And then you would just take them and recast them in a 1.5-inch PVC pipe, and you got yourself like a handle or bottle openers or whatever. But I thought it'd be kind of fun. It's a cheap way to get some interesting looking faux burls using different, this one's got glitter in it. Look at this. Get out of there. Look at that. Glitter burls. That's fun. This one's got some of the disco ball blanks. And that's another thing that I've got since we're doing shameless plugs right now. Shameless plug time, guys. New blank on the website, disco ball. I forgot to put a link, didn't I? So there's our disco ball. This one's actually got some of the disco ball glitter in there, I think. So anyway, a couple different things. Let me go grab some links for you guys. So the faux burl, there's only 2 boxes of those left. Let's see here. And then we'll drop this here. And then let me go find the disco ball links. Where do they go? Here it is, disco ball. I really like the disco ball. I gotta make one of those pens. Okay, so there's a couple links for you guys. Chad, yeah, I know. Well, I was just, I'm sure brass tubes are like way cheaper than nickel plated tubes, obviously, the plating part. But you're just kind of like, it would be really nice if these pen kits just came with like a black or a white or nickel plated. That would just be way easier. You don't have to, like the brass, the only time I actually want brass is if it's like a wood blank, completely opaque and it just doesn't matter. Or if you have some gold in the blank, then it's okay. It's not that big of a deal if you see a little bit. It needs to be still not like see-through, like transparent, but like translucent where there's a little bit of like that gold color shining through. You don't even notice it if you've got gold in the blank. But anyway, so next week we'll test these guys out. I'm really looking forward to seeing how these things work. The main thing is going to be the kind of charcoal with the pearl, hopefully getting like a marble look. Keep our fingers crossed kind of thing. I don't know. Right now I'm a little bit kind of like, I don't know that worked out. I think I might have needed a little bit more concentrated color in there or like more per pour. I don't know. That might have been not enough. But, whatever. We'll find out. We'll see what, how things turn out. Oh, that thing's making it. I might need to do something different with the camera. I didn't realize how much this camera, because it's on my monitor and I have an arm, but I also have a keyboard. So like every time I touch it, it wiggles. So, not good. But anyway, so we'll have to kind of see, and we'll evaluate what these things look like, and then, next week, and then I'll kind of have to figure out, what, if it's not what I was looking for, what are we going to have to do to kind of change it? Which, like I said, I think the biggest things are going to be like, how much did you pour at a time, or how dark, like concentrated is the darker color. We're going for subtle effects though, so it's tough. A lot of times I'm a little heavy-handed and more like, I tend to pour more color into things than subtle. Like that's harder for me. So maybe we nailed it. I don't know. I got high expectations for the gold and pearl though. I think that one's going to look good regardless. You could add more or less or whatever, but I think it's going to turn out pretty cool. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining the fun. Oh, Jim just made it. Nice. Welcome. You kind of got a little bit late, but you can watch the replay. It'll be ready for you whenever you want. And then, like I said, next week we'll turn these guys up. We'll have to kind of see how this goes. I might end up having to, just time-wise, I would prefer to do a 2-piece pen, which means I'm probably not going to be able to get to the probably not going to be turning 2 of these pens with a 2-piece. So what I might do, depending on time, and we'll have to kind of see how the week goes, I may turn one ahead of time, probably the gold one, and then we'll turn the charcoal one on the stream. So should be cool. Should be cool. So anyway, guys, I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks for joining the fun today. And yeah, we'll see you guys on the next stream.